Today's episode of Literally is sponsored by Lowe's. Are you in the middle of a big, for the anniversary tour right now?
I think I'm in the middle of everything. Yeah.
Good.
It's 50 years and people wonder how you could possibly survive 50 years with Teller. So that's
Well, there's that.
Yeah.
Surviving 50 years with anything, in anything, and then add Teller to it,
Yeah.
and you're kind of
becomes impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 50 year is, I was staying at the hip rock and roll, used to be, 50 years ago, hip rock and roll hotel, the Sunset Marquee.
Oh, do you remember how that was a real thing, wasn't it though?
Yeah, and I still stay there.
What's it like now?
It's the same. It's the exact same people. They're just wicked old.
Amazing.
So I bumped into Alice Cooper, and I said that we were on, it was 50 years. And he said, you should do some press on that. I said, see, that's why you're a genius, Alice. You thought of that just like that. Do something on the 50-year anniversary. So yeah, we're doing a lot of stuff. And we're doing some, we're doing Radio City, which is we've never done before.
How have you done 50 years and never done? You've played everywhere in the planet.
We have, but Radio City we've never actually played. And it's kind of nice. We're playing the Palladium over in London. So
Wow.
we're playing a lot of those bigger places. We usually play about 2,000, and this time we're up to more places that are like 5.
Does that affect the show in any way?
Yeah. We have so much material because it's been, I don't know, like 50 years. So we're picking, slightly bigger things. Although now when you're doing a live show, the audience expects you to do a TV show because they have the big screens up all the time.
Of course.
So if you do small stuff, they seem thrilled to pieces. And it's just kind of like it goes against my heart says they should be there watching a live show. But when I go to see a show, I'm looking at the screens too. So I guess things have just changed enough that every place you play now has a camera crew and a director.
Oh my God, it's so true.
I'm on stage, right?
Yeah.
I am the producer, the director, the writer, the star. I am everything along with Teller, that show. It's just the two of us doing everything. And they can still miss a shot and you don't get why didn't they react to that? Because I just did a miracle. And it turns out that they were shooting, the side of the stage.
Yeah, cutaway of somebody looking at you. Oh my God.
So you still, but the shows, it's been a long time. We've done over 8,000 shows. If you take the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, and all of them and put them together, they aren't a quarter of the number of shows we've done because they have tours, and we've had 50-year tours. You can talk about Mick and Keith being together for a long time, but they take 3 years off to hate each other.
That's right. You guys hate each other all the time, forever.
While working
together.
We can keep working and hate. We have that ambidextrous quality.
I love that. How has the world of illusion changed? Obviously, 50 years, everything in the world has changed. What if you had to boil it down to one or two things?
It's funny, but magic doesn't change. Now, magic, there's all sorts of new stuff, but the technology, the stuff that you'd first go to, the first thing you'd think about is we have all these miracles around us, so magic must be getting more amazing. And the truth is that in the 19th century, magicians were the cutting edge of science stuff. They are the inventors. We are the inventors of movies, and movies were first exhibited in magic shows. They were parts of magic shows. That's where it all starts. And there was the cutting edge. And then communication gets so remarkable that there's nothing I could know about technology that the entire audience doesn't know. So you go back to the basics, which is lying, which is the most important part of magic. Because, there's stuff you could do using the internet or using AI or using computers that every single human being in the audience knows. You'd be busted like this. So the show that we're doing, that we'll be doing at Radio City, and the show we'll be doing there, the only technology that is more recent than 100 years will be the technology that's plain out there in the open, the video technology, the lights, the fact that the lighting technology is different and sound technology is different, wireless and so on. But as far as the magic, it comes down to, sleight of hand and lying, and sadly comes down to a lot of gaffer's tape.
Oh, that's it. At the end of the day, there's not a problem that a little black gaffer's tape
can solve. Yeah.
Don't look over here.
And you put it inside your suit and you hide shit there and then you steal it. So, but that's a really interesting thing, because at first blush you would think, boy, there must be great stuff you can do.
Yeah, that's
with
what I would think.
technology. Yeah, and it's what everybody thinks is what I would think. Except when you come right down to it, you go, this is an incredible thing we could use, and I heard about it from my barber.
Yeah.
So he probably knows.
So you famously, James Randi, that's your guy?
Yeah, he was the hero. He's hero, mentor, friend, everything.
And what turned you onto him when you first you were like 18, you were a kid when you saw him for the first time, was that—
Well, I read the books first.
Okay. So in the book, his brand is like, he's I have superhuman powers and I'm going to levitate you. How did he articulate what you guys took and ran with so much earlier? Like what was his—
We really go back to the 17th century. And there was the first magic book ever published was called The Discovery of Witchcraft. And it's the first book that deals with magic as trickery. First book ever written that deals with magic as trickery. Before that, it was people were using trickery, but never was talked about. It was always under the guise of some sort of spiritual cloak, some sort of supernatural cloak. And then magic bifurcates right there, and they become two schools of thought in magic, which still exists completely. And I'm a little hesitant to do this, but I believe I'm morally in the right. I can present David Blaine's position on this because he said it to me many times, and we are friends, but we disagree completely. He believes at the end of his show that you should believe something about the universe that he knows not to be true.
That you should believe—
that the audience should believe,
something about the universe that he knows not to be true.
Yeah. He thinks that the job of the magician is to confuse reality. And I believe very strongly that no one should ever leave the theater believing something that I know not to be true because of me. And the kind of paradigm I use is sawing a human being in half. If you see a human being sawed in half in a magic show, everybody, except maybe the very young children and someone who has got serious mental problems, believes they are seeing a trick, and that the person that they're seeing injured is actually okay.
Correct.
And they leave the theater and they enjoy that wonder of that and the miracle of that, and they leave the theater not thinking anything different about biology or the morality of the performers. And that's very easy on that big illusion. On smaller stuff, like if I'm doing a card trick, there's two ways to present that. One is I've done some sleight of hand and I know what card you picked. And the other is I'm looking into your eyes and there's body language. And I can tell by where you look that your card is the 3 of hearts,
Right.
And those are the oversimplified ways of doing that. But there are many, many, many shades of gray. And David Blaine really enjoys and believes it's his job. It's not like I'm saying this is a failing of his. This is his goal, that you should leave the theater wondering about things about the universe. And I believe you should leave the theater going, during that whole time, they were monkeying with me, but the universe is the way it is. And that goes back. Now, Houdini, probably most famously in the 20th century, had a very strong feeling about that, because Houdini had worked when he was young doing readings, being a fraudulent psychic. And it broke his heart to lie to people about their loved ones. And he had this very strong moral position on this. And then after his mother died, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's wife was a big spiritual person.
Yes.
And she came to him and said that she had gotten a message from Houdini's mother. And there were a few things that were rather amazing about this message. It was automatically written. Somebody had gone into a trance and written it. There was a cross at the top. Now, Houdini's name was Eric Weiss. His father was a rabbi. He was an observant Jew his entire life. His mother was the wife of a rabbi and raised him Jewish, and there was a cross right at the top of the page.
Okay.
She also then referred to him as Harry, which was not his name. She called him Eric his whole life. His stage name was Harry Houdini. And he was so appalled by misrepresentation of his mother in the afterlife that he went even into overdrive. So Houdini is one of the few superstars, and he is one of the superstars of the 20th century.
Undoubtedly.
As a matter of fact, if you were going to look back in the future on who the most famous person in entertainment was in the 20th century, Houdini's going to be in the running because Houdini is in the dictionary. To pull a Houdini means to vanish. Elvis is not in the dictionary. So,
Dua Lipa doesn't sing about Elvis.
Right.
Let's just put it that way.
That's all you need to know.
That's all you need to know.
That's all you need to know.
All you need to know.
So Houdini's one of the few people, maybe along with Bob Dylan, who does a absolute theoretical change in his persona. I mean, David Bowie and Madonna.
In the middle of his height of his fame.
But, David Bowie and Madonna did it as part of what they did. Was
they just reinvent themselves seasonally.
But for a real idea of a new thing, Houdini came out first as an escape artist, which was pretty remarkable for a Jewish immigrant in the early 20th century to have as their showbiz slogan, "I defy the jails of the world to hold me." Pretty heavy stuff.
Wow.
And Houdini, in front of an entire ocean of immigrants, hanging upside down in a straitjacket and casting that off, it can make you, it can give you a kind of faith in America that we're perhaps losing now, a kind of joy and welcoming feeling. And then from that incredibly powerful, I am an escapologist, I am freedom personified, he then goes to, I am pro-science, and the supernatural stuff is not true, And then continuing from the 17th century right on through, those two tracks of magic go along. The I'm really magic, and the I'm doing tricks go side by side. And when I was in high school, junior high, there was a guy named Kreskin who died recently, and he was presenting everything as being, this is science.
And didn't he bend spoon? Wasn't his thing?
That's Uri Geller.
That's your, sorry. Yes.
That's the same guy morally.
Yes.
And he was on TV. And he was saying, I could have these powers of ESP. And he was selling his little bullshit ESP kit. And I bought it. My parents bought it because my parents were not wealthy. I didn't grow up poor, but not wealthy. And, that was actually an expenditure, but it was science, And then I spent all my time in this ESP stuff. And then because of the Dewey Decimal System, which is, you probably know, puts juggling and magic close together, I was...
That's how it started.
I was a juggler, and I happened to be looking through one of the magic books and saw the trick that Kreskin had done as a science experiment, saw the method as a trick. And my reaction was not healthy. I took that as adults lied to children and that science was all lies. And I went from a straight A student to flunking everything.
Come on.
That's true. And I had a hatred for magic that was unparalleled. And it wasn't until I read Randy's book and then met Teller that Randy and Teller both said to me, you can be honest and be a magician. And that was an incredible revelation, that you could treat people with respect. Jerry Seinfeld says, all magic is, here's a quarter, now it's gone, you're an idiot, now it's back, you're an asshole, show's over. and, and that was what magic was to me. It was just insulting. Plus, if you were when I was a child and there was like the Hollywood Palace on, the magician was the guy who was on before the rock people you wanted to see. Zeppelin will be up first, but first there's a greasy guy in a tux. Watch him, and then you can see Zeppelin.
Yes.
And so I hated magicians for all sorts of reasons. And Teller and Randy, kind of working together, told me that you could be honest and respectful to people and still do tricks with consent. And I don't mean to use a loaded word, but I really feel that way. I feel that if you don't give me your consent to trick you, if I just pull a trick on you, which when you think I'm being honest and you haven't given me explicit consent, which walking into the Penn and Teller Theater is that,
Mm-hmm.
in the first line of our show, we're going to do tricks. Then I believe that is outside morality, may be too strong of a word, ethics, but to tell you the truth, in my heart, I believe it's morality, but I wouldn't make a strong stand on that. I think you could argue that in terms of damage and so on, it might not be.
So I'm fascinated with this. So when in your analogy this is the perfect one, the woman sawed in half. That completely tracks. But what about when it's clearly a feat that involves some kind of physical thing you have witnessed, whether it's Houdini submerged with the chains, or it's David holding his breath for 17 minutes or whatever.
Well, Houdini would always, even in his escape stuff, would never claim that there weren't tricks involved. Okay. Although that's a tricky area because it doesn't really change one's view of science and biology. I mean, the fact that Houdini would let the rumor be that he would swallow keys and vomit them back up, whereas the truth was the last guy who examined him was working for him and would just hand him the key and a handshake.
So great. It's amazing.
It's much easier to do that, Houdini also, your first celebrity to appear naked.
When did this happen?
Well, he would be stripped naked.
He would
in
be
jail cells, and there's all these press pictures of him just kind of holding his handcuffs over his dick. He was, right along with those. A lot of breakthroughs for Houdini. Also, the first person to use the press, but Houdini was the first to manipulate it. And Houdini would actually use what we would now call, influencers.
Right.
He would hire people that were talkative and popular. He'd just slip them a 20 or whatever the equivalent would be to go to bars and tell stories of things they knew about Houdini that weren't true.
No way.
Yeah.
What a genius.
And so the whole kind of the idea of a rock star as we see it now is in a lot of ways created by Houdini. Now that's always a lie because time, and the Zeitgeist picked somebody to do that. If it hadn't been Houdini, it would have been somebody else. But every time they interview me about Houdini, I always go, well, you don't want to talk to me. Talk to Bob Dylan, the person that understands what it's like to be that much of a cultural force. Really, you've only got Bob Dylan that you can talk to for that kind of social change and tied in, Houdini was not, this is a very important point, not the most famous magician of his time. He was the most famous person of his time. And that's a very different thing. We haven't had a magician at the level of Houdini since, Houdini.
Yeah. Yeah, no, in Dylan, the same.
Yeah.
I mean, I was going to maybe Paul McCartney and John Lennon, maybe?
Maybe sort of, although it's very hard to pin a real direct cultural moral idea. I mean, Dylan was standing next to Martin Luther King Jr. when he gave the I Have a Dream speech. I mean, of everything Dylan has done, that may be one of the most important things. He was standing right here. That was Bob Dylan in the best written, best delivered, most important speech in the 20th century. Bob Dylan wasn't giving it, but he's standing there.
Right.
Wasn't Paul and John. They weren't
No, right.
they were thinking about being Elvis and being really, really popular. And nothing wrong with that. And so was Dylan, but he was thinking about other stuff at the same time.
So let me ask you this, though. So is there, I guess this would be the equivalent of me asking you to explain a great magic trick. But if a medium says, for example, there's someone here. His name is Bob. It's a B. It's Bob, Robert. And I go, all right. And he's dressed in golf clothes, but he's holding a bunch of pies. And I go, well, my beloved grandpa, Bob, was an avid golfer, had 11 holes in one. And whenever I would come visit him in Ohio, he would meet me at the airport holding a box of pies. How the fuck?
Well, yeah. Well, there's a lot of stuff going on here. First of all, because I can't explain it doesn't mean it's supernatural. That's one of the big things that skeptics fall into. They say, I don't believe this is supernatural. You say, explain this. You say, I can't. You say, therefore, it's supernatural. There's a lot of things I can't explain that aren't supernatural, including things in my refrigerator.
Yeah.
It's the problem with the term UFO, unidentified flying objects. Do you believe in those? Yes. There's all sorts of shit I don't know what's in the air. There are bugs that are unidentified to me.
Right.
Right. It's just all it's talking about is ignorance. So the fact you don't understand something does not mean it's supernatural. It just means we don't understand it. That being said, a big part of psychic reading is what's called cold reading.
Yes.
Which is simply another way of saying poetry. It's the negative side of poetry. We share all sorts of things that we don't know we share. So you say stuff that is true pretty much for everybody and watch the person's face. I see you, Rob, you're in grade school. You're surrounded by children. They're all around you. Yet you somehow feel alone.
Right.
You somehow feel separate from them. But yet it looks like you have a lot of friends, but you still feel alone. Yeah. Well, yeah.
Right.
It just happens. It's true for everybody. You can also go to other stuff, like you probably have a scar in your left knee, and because that's where the injuries happen, and all the 5 people in your family, because it depends on how you count them, right? How many brothers you have, or whether you count your grandmother, or whether there was an aunt that was close to you. Only children have 5 people in their family. People with 4 siblings have 5 people in their family. People with 5 siblings have 5 people in their family. There's always a way you can count it down to 5. There's all that stuff. But a lot of the psychics were doing hot readings, because the way you would learn about a psychic was a friend of yours would say, I go to this person and they're amazing.
Right.
And they would say, I'm bringing in my friend Rob next week.
Right.
And they would just have elaborate notes from everything you've said. And everything that they said that referenced that, they would go. And the psychics had a network where they'd sell stuff back and forth.
No way.
Yeah. But all of this has gone away with, of course, the internet.
Yes.
Because, so-and-so is coming in and we just type in, and that took exactly 25 seconds of research, right? So I'm talking about all stuff before 95, but so all that stuff comes. Plus, you can get lucky. Plus, you have people's memories. Plus.
When you say you can get lucky, what do you mean?
I mean, you can just say something and you can be right.
Yes.
You just get lucky. One of my favorite stories was, am I going to forget his name? I'm going to forget his name right now, but the big talking to the dead guy in the 90s.
Oh, yes. What the hell was his name?
Yeah,
I know exactly.
South Park did the whole thing on it.
Yes, I know who you're talking about, and I can't think of his name either.
I should know, but I don't. But anyway, the story that I heard, because a lot of skeptics were going to his shows and taking notes and putting it out, was he said in the middle of the stage, "I'm getting a strong feeling about Greece. Does Greece mean anything to anyone?" And someone raised their hand and stood up, and he looked at them and said, "Yes, I was getting the strong feeling of Greece, and your family is from Greece, and there are relatives." And she said, "My mother loved that musical." And he didn't even know how to pivot from there. He did, but that kind of stuff, of course, happens. But one of the remarkable things that skeptics have done is you record the the interview, the reading that you're getting. You record it, and then you also hear the person's report of what they did. And so I might say to you, I'm getting the feeling of a older woman in your life. It was a strong influence. It's an M or an N, and you say, my Aunt Nancy, who was, and then you talk forever. And then you come out of that reading and say, how did he know right away that I had an Aunt Nancy? And you listen to the tape and go, he never says aunt, he never says Nancy. He doesn't say any of that. And what you come down to is some very sad and rather profound things. I've always thought that many psychic readings are actually a feminist issue, or were a feminist issue in the 20th century, because they were finding really, really lonely people who were mostly women, who were home alone during the day and had few friends, and going to the psychic was someone to talk to, where they should have had a friend. And they weren't being skeptical in any way. They just wanted to talk about these things. And then you had that combination of, when Bob Dylan sings, I married Isis on the 5th day of May, but I could not hold on to her very long. You didn't marry anybody named Isis, and it wasn't on the 5th day of May. And yet he's speaking to something in your heart that feels real. Psychics do that poetry thing, and the friendship thing, and the psychology thing. And the really sad thing is
But the poetry thing, but the poetry thing,
Mhm.
which you've categorized as poetry, isn't that some sort of alchemy of unexplainable? Like you said, just because we can't explain it doesn't mean
It's absolutely unexplainable. You try to find why Bob Dylan reaches more people than many other songwriters and poets. And it's very hard to categorize that. Stephen Fry wrote a wonderful book on poetry, The Ode Less Traveled, where he talks about all the forms of poetry, but he is like me, a Dylan freak. And, you can talk about what Bob's getting a hold of. When you're listening to someone like Springsteen, or someone who is more a cheerleader, he's saying, we all share these things. Boy, do we like girls and cars, to talk about Springsteen in the 70s.
Right.
But Dylan doesn't do that. Dylan does this really personal stuff that is seemingly accidentally universal. And that's the part that I find so fascinating. And that, to me, that mystery of life, that mystery of connection, that mystery of art and poetry is the most beautiful thing in the world.
So you're, as a Dylan fan, how great is the sequence in The Greatest Night in Music, the making of We Are the World?
When Stevie Wonder teaches them how to do Dylan?
It teaches them how to sing like Dylan.
It's also fascinating, that whole Greatest Night in Music thing, how...
by the way, I could posit that if Dan Aykroyd could be in the back row, you could have been in the back row.
Yeah, why was Dan Aykroyd there?
I don't understand why Dan Aykroyd is in the back. I don't understand it. It gives me really bad FOMO, because that's right at the height of the Brat Pack. They could have used a Brat in there.
They could have used a Brat Pack.
They could have totally used
I don't want to flatter you, but I think you're better looking than Dan Aykroyd. I think
at least
when they're putting the camera, when they're panning the camera across,
yes,
I think you probably got Huey Lewis beat. I think you probably got Paul Simon beat. At least you're taller.
Got more hair.
Yeah,
For
sure. Probably better looking than Springsteen. You could have been a big addition to that one big wide shot.
And it was not to be.
It was not to be. The phone never rang.
No, the other great shot is
Quincy never called you up and said, "Rob, come on by."
Quincy and I were battling over the same women at that point. That was the issue. If you really want to know, that was I had competition. What's really nice is that I hate to say it, but all my competition is passing. Quincy has passed on. Nicholson's teetering. These were the guys. these were the guys. Warren still hanging on.
Yeah.
But
it still beats you, by the way.
Yeah, still. Yeah, still. Mick.
Yeah. No, I don't think Mick does. Don Knotts, he's dead.
Yeah, he's gone. The other great one is the picture of him in the chorus, the big panning shot in the chorus, where he's just not singing.
No, he's not singing.
At all, not even making an attempt.
But it is fascinating that Bob is just like a little kid. He's very uncomfortable. He's the most uncomfortable.
You must have met him
there.
now.
Yeah, but you can't talk about meeting Bob. You don't meet Bob again. But
That's right.
yeah, but it's a fascinating thing. It's also wonderful to watch how superstars, Paul Simon, Springsteen, and Billy Joel, all they're doing is watching Bob to see what he's doing.
Right.
If Bob decides this is not the place to be, those three are walking.
Oh. The 100%.
It's also wonderful, these people you see as rebels and rock and roll shitheads. It's amazing to see the work ethic. Everybody in that, with a few notable exceptions that are so clear we don't need to mention them, are just really hardworking people. Springsteen does a show that night, flies in, it's 5 a.m, he steps up to the mic and does a great job. And we also have to find out who the person was when Stevie Wonder is taking Ray Charles out to the restroom, the one who says it's the blind leading the blind. And they do not give you credit for who said that. But I don't think it's Aykroyd. Who was it?
Okay. Lionel Richie told me who it was.
Oh, he did?
And I've fucking forgotten.
That's why you weren't there. If you can't even report that properly.
Lionel told me who, because I love Lionel and he's an old friend, and I grill him all the time about that night. I'm obsessed with that night. When that documentary came out, I was like, this is a gift to me.
The person I most want to be in that whole documentary was the guy who goes, they don't speak Swahili there.
Oh, it's amazing.
We don't know who that is either.
Oh, wait. Hang on. He told me that too.
Oh, those are the
Hang
two
on,
things.
wait, no, I know, wait. Okay, so it is, who is it? That's an amazing moment.
Because having the balls to tell Dylan this is the way to sing like Dylan is one thing. But after that, to have the balls to tell Stevie Wonder.
Who did it? Waylon Jennings? It was.
No, it's not Waylon Jennings.
Are you sure?
No. Yes, I am.
Well, Waylon had the great quote where he goes, what he says,
Cowboys don't speak Swahili.
Yeah, Cowboys don't sing Swahili, and I will not be singing it. Just out.
Yeah, not Waylon at his best moment, but still
just
pretty
out.
Funny, yeah.
So funny. What a night.
Yeah, but he does mention Swahili, but I don't think he's the one that says they don't speak it there. Yeah.
That was one of those things where it just...
And also, the people that you didn't think much about, like Huey Lewis, I never thought much about, is a hero.
Murders.
And is also humble. I mean, so humble. He goes, I'm taking Prince's place.
Well, you know who that was supposed to be? I think that was supposed to be Kenny Loggins.
Uh-huh.
And Kenny, I'm pretty sure I sound like an idiot. I'm A, dropping names, and B, not following up on the name drop by forgetting what the names told me.
You are incompetently name dropping.
I'm the most incompetent name dropper. This is my new thing.
I want to hear one of these stories and say, I don't remember what Rob Lowe told me.
I don't remember. I know Kenny Loggins over a pickleball game.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure told me that he was supposed to be there and didn't, and that's where they got.
Kenny Loggins is there.
He is there. Well, see, I really don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I know what it is now. It's Kenny Loggins' idea to get Huey Lewis. That's what it is.
But Huey Lewis, he became my hero after watching that.
Kills it.
He just kills it. He just kills it.
And Cyndi Lauper with the bangles and the
She hits everything. She's really
like, she's like, I'm gonna throw down here. Yeah. Here's my favorite part. I want to be the one who is at the beginning you see Quincy doling out who's gonna, and it's based on what key they sing in, right? Which is super, super interesting.
It's actually not Quincy Jones. It's the guy who does the vocal arrangement, who's the genius, who wants Tina Turner in her lower register because he thinks she's more powerful there, making some really important artistic decisions.
And I want to be the person who goes, and Kim Carnes, you'll be singing "And We."
Yeah. Also the engineer going, you got one take with these people. I mean, the nervousness of that, Sorry, I didn't get all that. Can we do that all again? Yeah.
My old friend David Foster, who I've had many times on this show, not many, but I've had him. He likes, my favorite story I get him to tell is he did the Canadian "We Are the World," which is still my favorite thing ever. I forget, it's like "We Stand a Chance," whatever the fuck. Everybody was doing that, and he had Neil Young behind, and he's like, Neil, because David famously has perfect pitch. He's like, Neil, you're a little flat on that A note, and Neil's like, man, that's my brand, man.
Yeah. Well, I was talking with a friend who has very, very good pitch, and we were saying, can you think of a Neil Young song where he's in tune from beginning to end? And we could not name one.
No. It's the beauty of it.
And also the Clash. If they ever sang in tune, it wouldn't sound at all like the Clash. And I also wonder if I've always thought somebody should take Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, Four-Way Street, the live record, and put auto-tune on that and see what they were trying to do.
I used to see them a lot, and there were some nights where...
Yeah. Well, once you've got David Crosby, anything you're doing is going to be a little fucked up.
Yeah. And then he gets together, and then you got to worry about Stills. And then Stills goes together, and you got to worry about Graham. It's like very, very few nights where they all...
Yeah. Although Graham Nash, the most solid of all. Which is damning with faint praise.
They're murdering them right now.
You're working with Neil Young, David Crosby, and Stephen Stills, and you are by far the one who comes in on time.
Yes.
And knows what material you're doing. I think Graham's got that. Now put him in another group, put him in a Philharmonic, maybe he's not there.
Then we have issues. Oh my God. This is great, man. Do you have any dates what are your LA dates? Do you know? Yeah, I'll go.
We're playing the YouTube, and I don't know when it is.
Oh yeah, that's great. That's a great
When
theater.
is it?
October 16th.
October 16th.
October 16th.
How hard was that?
Little Halloween. Okay, last question. Very last question. What's the best magic trick you've ever seen?
Best magic trick I've ever seen was a guy named Eddie Fector.
Great name.
Who worked at a place called the Forks Motel that had a little sign out that said Magician Nightly. It was in Buffalo, New York. And he, like all of your great close-up guys, had learned magic because he was, shall we say, a graduate. He had done time. And anybody that's got a perfect bottom deal did time. And he big guy, I mean, big, beefy hands, jailhouse tattoo. This is 70s when not every mall girl had a tattoo.
Yes.
This is jailhouse stuff, indie ink with a little pin, and he would do card stuff. And I'm the only one in the world, by the way, who likes this. He would do dice stacking. And I'm the only person in the world that enjoys it. Teller can't stand dice stacking. It's where you take a little cup and you have dice, like 5 of them.
Yep.
And you move your hands like that, and you can stack them up and do 2 piles, and he could predict what numbers would be on which pile, and you're holding back and doing all that stuff. That was my favorite stuff. I loved Eddie Fector. And one of the reasons we do Fool Us is we're able to get on people who do that little stuff that would never be booked on another show, that do the real stuff that just kills me.
That's amazing.
So dice stacking.
I have a whole new rabbit hole.
You just asked somebody who's seen 800 magicians perform on Fool Us, the best in the world, who knows every magician you can name, who knew Siegfried and Roy, who knew everybody, and I just gave you dice stacking.
I'm gonna be hitting the wormhole.
And what was that book you were holding up?
How about that book? You're not gonna let that going on. Your new book, Felony Juggler.
Yeah,
by the way, I've been skimming through it. It's super great.
I had all these stories from when I was a street performer and I was homeless and I was just living on the streets juggling. I had all these stories, but I couldn't bring myself to write an autobiography, so I added a bank robbery and a murder to it. But up until they invite me to do the robbery in Burger King, up until that, every word of it is true. Because I read all the Bob Dylan stuff when I was 15, and I thought that Dylan was telling the truth. I never knew he made it all up. So Bob said he hopped trains, hitchhiked, worked in a carnival, left home. Actually, he went to the University of Minnesota and then went to Greenwich Village and was a superstar within 6 months. There was no struggling. There was no living on the streets for Bob. But I believed it. So all the stuff Bob Dylan says he did, I actually did. So that's what the book's mostly about. I have hopped a train.
Me too.
You have?
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
It was great with Christian Slater, of all people.
Really?
Yes.
Tell me about that. Can't you?
No, I can't.
You can just drop the name Christian Slater.
I know. This is a name.
Although you've gone down from David Foster.
I'm obsessed with a little-known movie called Emperor of the North Pole that is it's Ernest Borgnine. And he's the conductor on a freight train up in the Pacific Northwest during the Great Depression when everybody was a hobo and would use that transit. And it was the train that couldn't be ridden. And if you ride it, he'll kill you. It's a great B movie. So I wanted to do a new version of it and to do research for it. The movie never got made. Christian and I hopped a freight up in San Luis Obispo and took it all the way down to LA, and it was one of the great moments.
But you're already a famous guy then.
Yeah. We'd pass sightings and people would be stopped in their cars and they'd be like, what? As we'd go by. It was insane.
Oh,
it was so
fabulous.
It was so fun. We'd literally hide in the bushes. The train pulls up and you're like, should we go in this car? No, I think we can better. And then you're like the adrenaline of picking your spot. Because once you pick your spot, you're done.
You're done.
Right?
Yep.
And then the whole thing of like how you jump on if it's moving versus not. Because there's a way you can do it, it'll rip your arm right off.
That's true. Ask Buster Keaton.
Is that how he?
No, but he that's how he dislocated his arm. It's when he's grabbing I think it's actually a car, but he also hopped a train in a lot of those movies.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great American lost art.
And a lot of people, I just want to tell you, like out in the streets, they say Rob Lowe, the Buster Keaton of our time.
Yes, they do. They saw me fall down in the street.
And so much better looking than anyone else in We Are the World.
If I could just go back in a time machine. But I'd want to sing a lick.
Well,
I could sing And We.
And We, yeah. You could do that.
And We. That's my Kim Carnes. Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you. You're welcome, America. You're welcome. So the book, again, it's Felony Juggler, by the way, and great You kind of look like David Crosby on the title. I'm
Thank
just
you,
saying.
thank you so
You do,
much.
dude. I mean, here we are shitting all over David Crosby. Meanwhile, you're the one who looks like him
Yeah, okay, sorry, yeah.
on
yeah.
the
That's
title.
why I have that hostility.
Can I tell you about this outfit you have on?
I was a Renaissance. That's me at a Renaissance festival.
So good.
Isn't it good? Yeah.
Oh, that's
I was a Renaissance Festival performer. That's where Teller and I did our first show, was the Minnesota Renaissance Festival.
love that. So good.
Well, good.
Awesome. This is great. Thank you, my friend.
What a pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Literally, sponsored by Lowe's.